Okay, I'm not sure whether our candidate Hillary Clinton was watching. Sort of close to the last minutes, I basically said go vote Swapo. Uh, because they'll be recalled and put to account, and this is true. I know a lot of people think it's going to be business as usual and it's going to be easy, but it's not. So at the last minute, what seemed like slow voting of a few hundred people at polling stations and so forth turned into a few thousand, and Swapo swept the victory. So yeah, you understand what I meant by, you know, waiting for the buzzer. It's about knowing what you're doing, and some of my arrogant actually confidence. Um, Hillary is a big player. She's been doing this for a really long time, and I watched her closely throughout Bill Clinton's administration, running against brother Barack, and that's why I supported her since day one, was because she represents something that's very dear to me, and she seems to be the only one representing it, and that is equality. Equality in terms of gender. Women can also achieve what men can achieve. They have the same capacity. We live in the world of minds now, right? Not just brute force. um I'm the kind of guy that gets annoyed when people talk about his face, and ignore that I actually might have a mid-sized peanut in my head, right? um I don't expect a pat on the back. I feel like a lady sometimes, like, look beyond the face. Anyway, that's might not be a good joke. Anyway, so do I qualify to represent Hillary Clinton? Uh, 2016 is the year when a lot of things will be done and a lot of seeds will grow. Um, I've been focusing on the team. Uh, the team in the White House, as they've made strides and as they filled me in a lot of things. And now that I feel better, it's time for me to put out my contributions and stop being so intimidated by the scope of it all. If you're on the team, you're on the team. And yeah, it's not every time where you look at someone who inspires you and the next thing you know, you're on their team, right? So it took a bit of getting used to that whole aura, right? But we're there now. Throughout my disappointments, when I found out certain things, but we all have to work at certain things. So yes, I'm kind of part of the family. I stick my way in, and yeah, it's hard to speak of them officially, as most would. Oh, the first lady, oh, the president, and so forth. When you're close enough to say Barack, Michelle, right? And you have that sense of familiarity where you can even crack a joke if need be. And when you're serious, they know you're serious. They know, like, okay, he's going to work, right? This is work. So yeah, people that understand you and people that helped you when you were down, even though it seemed kind of rude, and I'll explain why I've forgiven the journalist that sort of turned a lot of things upside down for me. Because it grew me as a person. It really was one of those things that you have to go through to see if you can. And yeah, I pulled out at the other side, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to see, this guy, he's all talk, right? And now he knows I'm not just all talk. I was going through a bad phase, you know, but that's not what this is about. This is a dedication for Hillary Clinton, something to consider. Now, I have been learning a lot and have been engaging in a lot of work with someone that specializes in child development and child learning. 18. I don't think I have to say her name. She has a PhD, obviously, in it, and she's going to do amazing work in the future. When it comes to America, I have pointed out how broken the welfare system is, the social system, where they take kids out of their homes and put them in other homes, as if they're just kettle. You take a kettle and you give it, and you put it closer to the other kettle, it will start drinking milk, right? But we are human, we feel, we think. So when you're moved away from your family, there's nothing productive about that. It's not the right way. The right way is to look at the abuser and to look at the abused and see what kind of changes can happen. This is harder and it's slightly more long term, but it ends up revealing to the abuser and the abused the circumstances that have led to this, so that they can start focusing on that. Most of the time it's environment, it's the way the abused was raised, right? I know I'm pragmatic when it comes to these things. So where am I headed with this talk? Well, like I said, child development. What I've noticed is that when you look at the states, the level of their childhood education in poorer neighborhoods is horrible. In fact, it's one of those things where a child that's innocent and doesn't have a care in the world is reminded that they are poor and they live in this environment, and there are better environments where the teacher will probably want to teach. So meaning the way that we perceive teachers has to change. In America, the rules of teacher-learner engagement are so strict that the teachers cannot reach out to the learners emotionally. Young kids, because of fear of supposed molestation and fear of all sorts of things. But that cannot happen in a transparent system. If teachers are told to detach themselves from the kids that they teach, what you're actually doing is taking a lot away from the children. The most important parts of a child's life are how they grow up. If a child is experiencing difficulty, the teacher is the guardian. The teacher is the parent for a lot of time of most children's lives. So what happens when you tell a parent to disassociate and detach themselves from the learners? How do you expect the learners to grow up in a learning environment? It leads to kids feeling isolated, detached from their teachers. No bond is made. Thus, there's no need for them to please the one that's teaching them and make the one that's teaching them happy because of their hard work, because the environment isn't free. It's almost like being in prison. There is no play when it comes to teaching kids, and that's wrong. Kids need to play. And how do you develop kids? You help them when they are young so that you don't have a problem when they are too grown, right? And this isn't happening. And then who becomes the guardians and the ones that the kids look up to? The gangs, the drug dealers, all of those people. And they won't report this to the teacher and say, these are my influences in this neighborhood, because they are young. So America needs to turn their classrooms into sanctuaries again. If a child has problems outside of the class with a dysfunctional family, then this should be the kids' haven. It should be where they feel free. It should be where they are told that they mean something and they have potential. And saying this should not be considered misconduct. That is not the way to teach kids. They are just kids. You cannot implement adult rules on the young ones, because if the young ones are taught properly when they are young, they will grow up and will choose between bad influence and good influence. The same with middle school, when kids hit puberty, when they act out and so forth. By that time, the influence has already started to breed, manifest within these kids' minds. And yet again, you cannot inquire, they can only speak to the social worker. And the social worker is overwhelmed because there are so many kids that are coming in for counseling. So the interconnected system of how kids are taught in schools has completely deteriorated in America. This is what we speak of when we speak of, think about it as our kids, not somebody else's kids, our kids. It's better if a child finishes school without getting pregnant, or when she does get pregnant, have the right guards in place so that she can finish her education, have the right mentorship in around her, so that she does something with her life and doesn't feel like she's been kicked out of the system due to this. So when it comes to the environment in the so-called violent neighborhoods, the cure is at the schools, right? Child education, middle school education. Find out the problem before it becomes a problem. This is what Hillary's approach is about. She's looking at the average American, how they live, what is important to them, what are they losing, what are their values. And with that arsenal with her, she will be able to uplift those who had a voice that nobody wanted to hear. And its effect, the segregation of neighborhoods based on class, is part of the problem. I think you guys know about how the three strikes law came to be, about the man whose child was randomly killed, and he went on radio and he got his friends together, and the next thing you know, they passed a bill, the three strike. And obviously about the man that stole a sandwich because he was hungry, and it was his third strike, and he ended up in prison for life. That's why the three strike rule was under review, because that it lacked the input of the ordinary American that's struggling to get by, right? So segregating neighborhoods should stop when it comes to law enforcement. They cannot be tougher in some neighborhoods and then in some neighborhoods let things go. They should treat all neighborhoods the same, despite the assumption that some neighborhoods are more dangerous than the other, because the only thing they're doing is letting those other criminals get away with it, while these other criminals who, basically flush it in people's faces, end up creating a bad reputation for the entire neighborhoods when it's only a select few. Most people are walking, trying to get by. They are not out there in gangs, and that's negative press. They make it seem like the entire neighborhoods are full of gangs. In the end, the people feel harassed by the police because they know that the way they're treated is not the way some other people are treated in so-called upper class neighborhoods. So that divide has to end. It is systematic discrimination. It's a remnant of the segregation times, and it's time for it to leave. It's corroding the system and leading police to kill men for merely selling loose cigarettes. So the campaign started off as it did, about empowering the ordinary American. And now there's a lot of bad press saying, no, she won't be tough on Wall Street. But you have to understand, in order to get her elected, you need the funding. Even Barack had funding. I think it took like $1 billion for Barack to, in funding for Barack to become president. Think about that. So the ordinary American has to step up and say, we support Hillary and we're going to donate the little we have. Because the ordinary Americans coming together, they can run this campaign and it will be their campaign. But they have to start taking ownership of it. Yes, I'm a Democrat, obviously. But that doesn't mean that I'm completely biased when it comes to the Republicans. And they know that. That's why I have the bipartisan treatment. Because I'm more about values. And obviously the one that encompasses the right values for me is the one that I'll move towards. The one that has the capacity. So I just want to say, loud and clear here, so I don't have to keep on reaffirming it, I am with Hillary Clinton.